Welcome to the Business Law, Estate Planning, and Estates Podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome back to an all-new episode of the Business Law, Estate Planning, and Estates Podcast with attorney Thomas LaPorte. I am your host, Mike Leon. Thomas here is the founder of LaPorte Law Group, PLLC, with an office in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and a location out in Andover, Massachusetts. And with more than 30 years of experience in this space, he's been helping individuals, families, and business owners protect their assets, plan for their future, and navigate estates and business matters with clarity. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about how families can protect their home and savings from long-term care and nursing home costs. I know my family went through that once upon a time, Thomas, so it's good to see you. So let me ask you at the onset here, for people that are unfamiliar with Medicaid overall, what are some of the key Medicaid rules in the state of New Hampshire and Massachusetts that families should know when they start to think about long-term care?
Okay, good to see you, Michael. And Medicaid is governed by federal statute. The states administer the federal statutes. So in Massachusetts, it's Mass Health. In New Hampshire, it's just called New Hampshire Medicaid. And on Maine, I'm blanking. They call it Maine Health, but it's they all are governed by the same federal statutes. The enforcement of those statutes is different from each state. Eligibility can vary a little bit from state to state as far as how much income one can keep per month, for instance. But generally, in all of the three states I practice in, I have California, but I don't do Medicaid out there. Generally, one needs to be medically eligible. It's medically necessary for the person applying for Medicaid dollars, which are public dollars from our federal tax money. These clinical nursing level care, whether it's administered at home or institution. The states differ on what they'll cover, but generally there's a medical necessity that one needs clinical nursing level care, not just assisted living. In addition to that, and here's the big 1,000-pound gorilla, one has to be financially eligible as well. In Massachusetts, one can only have $2,000 in assets. That's it. In New Hampshire, it's $2,500. One basically has to be a pauper in order to qualify for Medicaid. It was originally set up, folks argue, and the government argues, to help folks that move below the poverty line. The problem has become, and I'll end my answer to your question with this, is that nursing homes and clinical nursing care is so expensive that even if one has acquired assets their whole lifetime, there's a good chance, depending on how long one has to stay in such a facility or receive such care, that you can lose your life's assets based upon a life of work, for instance. So that's where the competition begins.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you about something kind of related to this, because a lot of families out there assume that they can cover these care costs as they tend to come in. For the listener out there, what important considerations kind of tend to be missed from your experience when there isn't maybe a broader plan that's been put in place?
Well, they have to understand what the average cost is. In New Hampshire, which is less than Massachusetts, and Maine is slightly behind New Hampshire, it's $14,000 to $15,000 per month. So times that by 12, we're up over $150,000 already after 1 year. Now, there's average stays based upon actuarial data, statistical data, based on what the average length of stay in a nursing home is. But some of your loved ones may hang on with cognitive-related disorders for years. And those assets are going to be available because that person, if they have assets, is not eligible for Medicaid dollars. And so the family will have to private pay for that care for as long as clinical nursing level care is needed.
Yeah. Thomas, you mentioned about the assets before 2,000, 2,500 in New Hampshire. So homes cost way more than that. So how does owning a home affect the long-term care planning process, especially when these families, they want to keep the property in the family?
All right. Well, first of all, people should know. And I had this discussion with a client a few months ago. She was adamant because a friend told her this. A well-meaning friend trying to protect her from whatever. Um, People need to know that assets that are part of a probate estate, and probate estate exclude life insurance policies. They exclude joint tenancies like joint bank accounts. They exclude other contract assets such as those retirement accounts that have beneficiary designations. All of those assets and the home are countable assets and available for Medicaid, for nursing home care. And if you have any of those, so everything's included, including retirement assets, including a home, irregardless of any homestead protections, which protect you against creditors, a tort credit if you hit someone in the road, unfortunately, or there's a contract dispute. The government and Medicaid, none of that affects them. All of that is available, and they will make you spend those down, sell things until you get down to those $2,000, $2,500 levels before you're eligible for Medicaid. Now, with the home, if a spouse is still living there, it's protected. You will not be disgorged or kicked out of the home. The community spouse. Person is living in the home. She will not lose her home, or he will not lose her home. In Massachusetts, they can put a lien on that home, however. And once that person who's living there passes away, it's an estate lien on that home, and they will get paid from the estate. And the home will be sold in the probate estate, and the children, if there are any, or beneficiaries, will not get that home to the extent there's an estate tax recovery lien on it in Massachusetts. Other exceptions to losing your home to Medicaid, and for most people, your home is the largest asset that they're ever going to have. And it's a home too, so it's not just an asset. If the person who's in the nursing home is there temporarily and intends to return there and can return there, then the home could be protected. Another, and I'll end the answer to your question here, another exception is if there is a caretaker, an adult caretaker who's lived in the home, doesn't come during the day, for instance, and has taken care of the person who otherwise would have needed clinical nursing home in nursing care in a nursing home, then because that person has forestalled the use of public dollars, then the home will be protected under what's called a caretaker exception.
Okay. Thomas, some people think, and you correct me if I'm wrong on this, some people think that they can quickly transfer assets if a health issue does start to arise. What usually happens from your experience when families try to shift assets a little too close to needing care?
Well, the investigators for Mass Health and Hampshire Medicaid weren't born yesterday. They've seen this for years. Same thing in every state. There is what's called a 5-year look-back period. So when one applies for Medicaid, you need to list every single financial transaction, including Christmas gifts, birthday gifts. They want to see cards. You need to provide 5 years of all bank statements, credit card statements. They want to see what you transferred from, say it's you, Michael, what Michael transferred to a third party out of your name, your ownership of that money, that assets. And that, if you've done that, to the extent you've done that, it's an algebraic formula. If you transferred, say, $300,000 within the last 5 years, then that $300,000 is going to be plugged into that formula and result in a penalty period where you are not eligible for Medicaid. It disqualifies you for a penalty period. So you will have to private pay, even though you've transferred that $300,000 to your brother, thinking that's protected. You're doubly you doubly messed up because you not only transferred the money, hopefully your brother will give it back to you, but now you need the money to pay for the nursing home. So you have to have not transferred assets within the last 5 years from the date of that you were medically eligible for nursing home care. There's ways to save some of those assets, protect some of those assets, but it's becoming more and more difficult because there is a dearth of public dollars to go around, and our population is aging like it never has before.
Yeah. Thomas, we've talked about in previous episodes trust, and obviously those are helpful in the right situations. When you're meeting with a family, what are some factors that tend to guide for those scenarios, whether a trust makes sense for their long-term care goals?
First of all, yeah, there are called they're called Medicaid qualifying trusts. They're also called income only, irrevocable income only trusts. When one irrevocably transfers a home or other assets into a trust, that's what it means. You irrevocably are divesting yourself of legal ownership and title. So you better trust the trustee, hence the name, and or the beneficiaries that they're going to be good with your asset, so to speak, okay? Because you legally do not own that asset. You still need to, once you transfer a home, for instance, into these irrevocable trusts, you still need to wait 5 years because that's still going to be a disqualifying transfer if you need a nursing home or clinical nursing level care at home or in a facility 4 years from now. In Massachusetts, if it's me and I've transferred my home into this type of trust, I must have no possibility whatsoever of getting any principal of that trust corpus, or the assets rather, that are transferred into the trust, most cases a home. So the investigators are lawyers. They're young, getting younger, so they have experienced to a larger extent than the older examiners the scarcity of Medicaid dollars and the increase in applications from the baby boomers who are now in retirement or beyond retirement. So they're much, much more strict. So the trust is called an irrevocable income only trust. You can get income from it only, can't get to the principal. There are other rules that need to be abided by for those 5 years, and speak to your attorney that does this sort of law about those. Otherwise, the other assets that are in your name, including joint tenancies, they're going to be available and need to be spent down for nursing home care before you are eligible for Medicaid dollars from the public coffers.
Let me ask you, Thomas, a piece of advice for maybe the adult child, that's trying to help an elderly parent right now. Like, what are some documents, financial info they should start gathering before maybe meeting with someone like you to talk about long-term care planning?
Well, I think it's sort of pick your poison. Have people come to me for estate tax planning, especially Massachusetts folks, because the level there that triggers an estate tax obligation at the state level is so low there. Maine's a little bit better. New Hampshire does not have an estate tax. But if health is becoming a concern, then a client may start thinking about protecting the home from the nursing home. Hear that all the time. Well, start planning early. Let's get an inventory of your assets, and we can do a transfer into the trust. We can start a gifting program. Each person can gift up to $18,000. It may have gone to $19,000 as of 2026. In any event, it's $18,000 to $19,000 per year per donee. Now, if you're gifting it to your son or you're gifting it to your granddaughter and you really need that cash, well, you know what? We're all family members. Maybe that's going to be available. Now, it's not supposed to be. But start a gifting program, and then make sure that if you do transfer these assets, you're still going to have enough left over in case tomorrow you have a stroke and you do now have to go into the nursing home right away. Because sometimes all the planning that you do in advance is undone by a health event that puts you in the nursing home right away, and now you've got to have enough to pay for that privately.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah, makes total sense. And it funnels into the follow-up as we kind of wrap this episode here, Thomas, which is for someone that is listening to this episode right now and they do want to start planning early, what are some additional steps that can help them protect the home savings long before long-term care actually becomes a concern for them?
Well, other than the things that were mentioned, there's not too much one can do. Because you've got to get across, you've got to have enough to get through that 5-year look back period, because you may be in a nursing home for 5 years. So get together with your financial advisor and look what your burn rate is. What are your expenses going to be in the next 5 to 10 years? What's the cost of your lifestyle? And then make a determination of, from there, well, what can we transfer now that we are not supposed to have legal title to, including our home, including whatever liquid assets that we may be transferring? Can we do without those based on what we have left over? And hopefully we make the 5 years, okay? If you don't make the 5-year look-back period, there is some critical planning devices that can be done that can protect some of the assets. But it's tough. It's tough. So I'd get together with your financial advisor, as well as a Medicaid planner, an attorney that does this sort of work, and sit down and talk it out and put together a plan.
Put together a plan. Couldn't have said it better myself. Thomas, thank you for the time, the insights. Appreciate it as always.
Thanks, Mike.
That's it for today's episode of the Business Law, Estate Planning, and Estates Podcast. If you'd like to learn more, you want to connect with Thomas and his team over at LaPorte Law Group, visit laportelawgroup.net right now. One more favor for me before you go. Hit like, hit subscribe, leave a review, comment, share the episode with someone who needs to hear it. I'm Mike Leon. See everybody next time.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.